All right, I think we can begin. Hi everyone. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Ekram Sardar, and I'm the curator at Squeaky Wheel. To give a sort of description of myself, I'm a white and/or white-passing Turkish person with a mustache and a beard, wearing a blue shirt. And behind me is a sort of digitally glitched out purple background. To those of you who don't know us, Squeaky Wheel is a center for art and technology that provides low-cost equipment rentals, media education for youth and adults, and exhibitions, screenings, and public programs and residencies since 1985. We are transmitting today from Seneca Land in what is nowadays known as Buffalo, New York. So today I'm very excited both to talk about our upcoming spring 2022 session of the Workspace Residency, which is a sort of crown jewel, if you will, of our exhibitions program. And I'm also very excited to have with us two people who have immeasurably improved our residency program. I first met Katrina and Kira in the 2017, or I think Katrina, we met in 2019. Is that right? Or did we meet in 2017?
I'm not sure. Time escapes me after last year.
Fair. But we first met at the Common Field convening in Los Angeles, where they presented a workshop for arts administrators titled How to Make Your Residency Suck Less, on how to improve your residency calls. They've been deeply generous with their time and info every time have a question, or I'm like, ooh, does this sound good? Is this a better, does this make something more accessible or not? And the website they founded, Rivet, is very simply the best listing site for residencies worldwide, period. So it's wonderful to have them with us and for them to be presenting their workshop, applying for things. Today, you can see the sort of structure of today on the sort of purple page that I have laid out. I'll be talking a bit about the residency, and then I'll be introducing Katrina and Kira, and then we will have a brief Q&A. We have enabled live automated captions, so you can press the live transcript button. And we do ask that people abide by our community guidelines, meaning sort of like no oppressive behavior, no harassment, being mindful of different lived experiences. And I'm linking a link to that right now. I also want to mention that our presentations currently, both mine as well as Rivet's, are being recorded, but the Q&A won't be. Both my presentation as well as Kira and Katrina's presentation will be available online after today as well. So, the Workspace Residency. So I'm going to go over the website a little bit. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the program and the application instructions as well as the application page. So if you go to squeaky.org, you can see applying for things, Workspace Residency Info-session. And you'll see sort of a lot of our different programs. You'll see our education programs, you'll see our exhibitions, and under opportunities and employment, you can go and click on our Workspace Residency program. This is usually the sort of like homepage that we generally update, and this is where a lot of the sort of information generally is for each upcoming session. So the residency program is a project-based residency for artists and researchers working in media arts. We offer it twice a year, and the residency is open to applicants from Buffalo and from across the United States who are seeking resources, time, and support for ongoing projects or the creation of new work. Selected applicants have sort of tailored access to facilities, equipment, technical and curatorial consultations from Squeaky Wheel, as well as our Workspace Residency partners from Buffalo Game Space, The Foundry, and Silo City. Residents also have the opportunity to attend guest lectures. We provide them with public opportunities to share and receive feedback for their work, and we invite them to a lot of different events for them to sort of like attend to and to help discover sort of Buffalo and its histories as well. We are still in a global pandemic, and since last summer, we have been running our residency program primarily virtually. What that means is that instead of people coming here, they do it at home. We still provide them with supports such as equipment access that we mail to them, facilities that we find around them, and we have our events take place online. So we're going to see in terms of this upcoming session, just assess as we go forward, case rates, see what happens, take it certainly week by week and month by month to see how feasible it will be and how safe it is for everyone to be here in person. So this is going to be, I think, the 6th, 12th, 13th, I think 14th session of our Workspace residency program. We've had a lot of amazing artists from Buffalo and from all over the country be part of this program since the beginning. You can see sort of the biographies and all of our previous residents here. And you'll see a lot of different projects. You'll see people working on installations. You'll see people working on feature films. You'll see people working on website projects, and very sort of geared towards art. We also accept researchers, meaning curators, scholars, writers, who are simply need a little bit of time to perhaps write a curatorial proposal for a screening series that they do, write an essay on a media artist that they want to write about, and so on. So I do recommend sort of going through our former residents and sort of seeing the kinds of projects that they've been up to. It'll kind of give you a sense of like the range of work and the depth of thought that is often sort of like a part of their work as well. So this upcoming spring, our applications are now open. The spring 2022 residency dates will take place between March 4th and March 18th. We are offering all selected residents $1,000 in artist fees and stipends. And on the application, you can also request up to $700 in the financial assistance towards childcare and or disability support. And the deadline is in 1 month. You'll see a lot of things here. The key thing, I think, some of the things to notice on this page is that this is the spring session. And because it's a spring session, we do not offer a specific Silo City resident program. So that is simply, that is specific for summers only. I always, Buffalo is still very cold in March, or can be very cold. I think back on some residents we've had here in March who were greeted just by pure, icicles coming down from the sky. And in the summer, Buffalo is absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. And, that's a perfect time to be doing things at Silo City. Eligibility, anybody with a social security number can apply. They just have to be able to fill out a W-9 form, and all payments are made via check. And, if you've received a residency in the past, if you're a local resident, you can apply again after 2 years. And if you're a national resident, you can apply again after 5 years. A key document and link here is the application instructions. This will answer many of your questions and will provide you with a good amount of background towards your application. It basically goes to a Google Doc that we frequently update. And I highly recommend sort of bookmarking it. And it tells you a bit about the program, and it goes sort of over a lot of more of the details. So it, for example, describes even sort of like, if you're an artist resident, the residency program lends itself to the creation of a wide variety of work. Researchers, artists, scholars, curators, and theorists invited to propose newer and public progress research. Goes over eligibility. It also tells you a bit about residency details and expectations. In terms of what to expect in the months prior to your residency starting, as well as when your residency starts. Indigenous people, people of color, women, Two-Spirit, LGBTQIA+ individuals, and applicants who face systemic and structural barriers are always highly encouraged to apply. And I also want to highly encourage people from Buffalo to apply as well. You're always welcome to send me questions. If nothing in this document, if there are things in this document that don't answer your questions as well. the residency is independently paneled, and it is always composed of at least one full or part-time staff member of Squeaky Wheel, along with two other panelists that we invite to the program. Once the applicant pool is set and the deadline has passed, the panelists are sort of vetted and removed from sort of judging any applicants who they may have a conflict of interest with. And each panelist rates applications on a sort of 1 to 5 scale, 1 being very weak and 5 being very strong. And that's across 4 criteria. Artistic merit, that covers the sort of technical, artistic, and intellectual merits of the proposed project. Achievability, it considers whether the proposed project can be accomplished within the time and resources offered by the residency. And in general, projects except for the Silo City residency don't have to be completed. This is totally, there are residents from many years ago who are still working on their projects, and then there are residents who started their residency and finished the project right at that time. Potential, that covers the sort of possible life the work of art will have upon completion through exhibitions, publications, presentations, festivals, and the like. And Skillshare proposal. That sort of covers the feasibility of their Skillshare proposal and its value to the community. One of the important things that I think is worth considering is it might be worth really sort of looking at previous Skillshare proposals, and you'll find a link to that in the application page as well, to get a sort of sense of what kind of Skillshares often go. If you're not familiar with Squeaky Wheel, you can tailor it to youth. We do have a lot of youth workshops, and we often love seeing residents present, sort of show their work to our students. But it can also be for adults as well. Panelists spend a minimum of 20 minutes with each project proposal, which also includes viewing work samples. And then once everyone has reviewed all applications, they submit their rating sheet to me, and I assemble a shortlist from their sort of collated ratings. At that point, we convene to discuss applicants from the shortlist and deliberate on the final recommendations of applicants towards the residency. So the ratings criteria are, mostly function as a guide. It's not a be-all, end-all. It's to sort of help panelists sort of have a sort of clear discussion on the residents that they want to recommend to Squeaky Wheel. At that point, the panelists are sort of, their recommendations are sent to us, and we sort of review the recommended projects and proposals for feasibility, and then we contact the successful applicants. The guide also includes the application form and process, and I highly recommend that you copy and paste this into your own document so that you don't lose any information on the application page. And it will ask you for your email, phone number, full address, whether you request financial assistance for childcare and or disability support. A couple of notes that's something information that is not shared with the panel and will not impact how your application is rated. There are a number of questions on there that really sort of just help us organize the residency according to the panelists' recommendations. Whether you're interested in an in-person residency, virtual residency, or either, because even after, if we can imagine a future post-pandemic, we do hope to continue offering a virtual residency for people who may not be able to travel for any reason whatsoever. A brief bio, 100 words, project title, project description, and you'll see some guidance about how the sort of things to write for. One thing I should note to panelists is that, while everyone sort of loves, reading great applications and so on, we do also make sure to note to panelists that people have different experiences, and, some people, spend hours and days and days and days applying to all of the things, and they have a lot of experience writing the grant proposals themselves. However, the actual, we do try to make sure that that is something that they consider while they're rating applicants, that a very well-written proposal might not necessarily be an indicator of good work, but that the work is central. Your Skillshare and or seminar for adults, please provide a proposal describing the focus and goals of the class. Why are you applying to the residency? How do you anticipate utilizing your time? Links, portfolios, or other examples of your work. Please double check all your links. I really recommend sort of opening them in a browser in which you're not logged on. If you're sharing from, like, say, Google Drive or so, to make sure that they're accessible. It is pretty common for us to encounter work samples that are simply not there through the duration of the paneling process. Which workspace facilities do you anticipate using? And if you are interested in a virtual residency, what kinds of support would benefit your project? So one of the sort of, nicer things that happened in our first residency program is that we had a resident in Philadelphia, and we were able to connect with Scribe Video Center there to provide them with green screen access. So if you are interested in specifically in a virtual residency and you don't live near us, we do try to sort of like find collaborations and ways to sort of partner with our larger national network to provide you with the facilities and support that you need for your work. And then equipment list, there is an equipment list that you'll see right below, and names, emails, addresses, and phone numbers of 2 references or a resume or CV. And that's pretty much it. And underneath that, you'll see our equipment list and several frequently asked questions, including how is the COVID-19 pandemic affecting the residency? As mentioned, we're doing it virtually. Does it cost money to apply? No. How long does it take it to apply? Most people tell us it takes about 3 to 4 hours. Collectives or collaboratives apply? Yes, but they do have to sort of share the resources. If it's in person, can I bring my children? Again, sharing resources. We do, again, offer limited financial support for childcare. That is, and we do also hope to sort of develop more ways to, I think, integrate with our youth education programs, so that while you're at the residency, maybe they're taking a class, and so some other sort of collaborative possibilities as well. What are the chances I'll get accepted? So each session receives approximately 100 applications, and we accept usually between 2 to 4 applicants depending on the session and our capacity. The applications to the residency have been roughly increasing by 35% or so every year. There are dips and downs. Applicants from Buffalo, or those applying in the research or Silo City categories, do have a higher chance of being admitted because there are less applicants usually within those sort of categories. We do encourage panelists for every session to include at least 1 applicant residing in Buffalo. And then, the majority of applicants apply for the artist residency category and are non-local. I've never written a residency application before. How can you help? We highly recommend the guide, How to Apply to Things, at Rivet. We unfortunately cannot provide feedback to unsuccessful applications at the time. That is something that we hope to increase in the future. Do you have to be a U.S. citizen to apply? No. We accept all applicants who have a U.S. Social Security number and can fill out a W-9 form. So that's OPT holders, Indigenous people born in Canada who can sort of work here as part of the J Treaty, among sort of many others. So at the time, we cannot, however, accept residents who don't have a Social Security number, and we cannot provide assistance with the process of obtaining a visa. Can I be part of the panel? If you live in Buffalo, I'd love to hear from you. We're always sort of on the search for panelists. I have a little list that we put together, and if you are from Buffalo and if you'd like to outline why you would want to be on the panel and what experience and interest you would bring to the process, I'd love to hear from you. We do try to make sure that every panel has a sort of range of experiences and a range of interests and things that they can speak to. We do accept a lot of different technologies. So, there should be someone who can speak to film. There should be someone who can speak to media, art and technology. There should be someone, the people should be able to sort of speak to different lived experiences and so on. And that, I think, so far concludes my presentation. So you're welcome to type questions in the chat at any time, but we will get to them towards the end. But at this point, I do want to mention, or not mention, but at this point, I think I can finish my part up, and I can introduce Katrina and Kira. Um, and I will do this by reading both of their bios. Katrina Neumann began her career as a visual artist while working in arts institutions as an in-house designer, web manager, marketing and communications specialist for the past 18 years. On nights and weekends, she founded the startups Rate My Artist Residency and co-founded Rivet. Both are platforms that help artists find research opportunities, funding, and transparency within this niche market. Neumann freelances as a graphic designer, web designer, social media marketing, and communication specialist for artists, small businesses, nonprofits, and arts institutions. Kira Simon Kennedy is the co-founder and co-director of China Residencies, a multifaceted arts nonprofit that has supported hundreds of different international creative exchanges to China since its inception in 2013. She has been a fellow at New Inc., the New Museum's incubator for art, design, and technology, as well as the IFP Made in New York Media Center, building Rivet to connect creative people with opportunities worldwide. She also produces independent films and documentaries, including Ascension, which won the Best Documentary at Tribeca in 2021, as well as ongoing series about the creative scenes in China's second and third tier cities, and a previous year-long project about China's underground music scene for the record label Modern Sky. Kira holds a BA in East Asian Studies and Fine Arts from the University of Pennsylvania, and was a member of the inaugural class of Penn's School of Social Policy and Practice program in Social Impact Strategy and Arts and Culture. She's a translator of French and Chinese texts on art and philosophy, and co-wrote Holy Shit, My Friend Has Cancer, a website to help young people deal with tough situations. Please welcome Katrina and Kira.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Ekram, for inviting us. And we're big, big fans of Squeaky Wheel. And oh yeah, I am a brown-haired white woman wearing a green hat with the Chinese word for horse embroidered on it. And my background is clouds.
I am just pulling up the share screen, so just a second.
Thanks. It's great having everyone here. As a little background, this is a virtual version of something we actually tested out in person a few times, where people who have the power to host opportunities and give them would come and really just talk through their application process. And then usually we would also invite people who actually got the residency to show you their actual application. And maybe, I don't know if there's anyone of the Workspace residencies that you know of who would want to make their application public, semi-public, but that's always helpful for people to see actual examples. And then we'd break out into small groups and everyone would have pizza, and we would actually just help people either find opportunities to apply for, or work on current applications, or even just like proofread things that are almost ready to go out. And we highly encourage you, whoever you are, wherever you are, to kind of build this support group with a group of friends or other creative organizations in your area. Sometimes, I think we suggest like the first Monday of every month, or whenever you have time to get together, just to really share resources. Like, this all shouldn't be secret. Nothing that we're going to say is, arcane or hidden knowledge. Please, please, please pass this on to everybody who might find it helpful. Our goal is to make sure everyone knows that these great opportunities exist, and that they find the best people for everything. But yeah, are we good?
All right, thanks for waiting. My name is Katrina Newman. Thank you, Ekram, for a wonderful introduction. I am a dark blonde-haired woman with my hair pulled back. I am white, from German and British descendant, and my background shows my bedroom with white walls and a ceiling fan and a painting or so on the wall. So, and I'm wearing a white t-shirt currently, but I am co-founders with Kira, and to kind of tee off what she says, I totally, like, this can be appropriated, it could be taken, it could be repurposed, like, and shared amongst other people, absolutely. So please, please do what you can with this information that we are going to give you. So So the first question really is like, how are you guys? How are you holding up? I know last year was quite intense, but I think we're still kind of reeling from that. And, organizations are, I think creatives are, and as much as we want to get back to normal, we're not there yet. So just kind of wanted to check in or do a room check with everybody. So, but I guess we can't unmute at the moment.
And everyone, oh, thanks. Yeah, feel free to use the chat and jump in whenever feels comfortable for you all. And yeah, we know it's been just a rough everything. Even though everyone, like Katrina was just saying, like things are sort of opening up, things are happening. They can't happen for everyone, and we wish more organizations were more cognizant of that. But also, it's just a rough and complicated time, and I think we're both here for all of the range of emotions that everyone's dealing with right now, and also hopefully to infuse a touch of optimism that even amidst all this mess, there are really, really great organizations that are going to stay flexible. I loved hearing that Squeaky is going to keep doing virtual residencies. There really still is an enormous amount of support and funding and good people out there who really do want to help with what you're going through. And although everything seems still really isolated and it can be hard to kind of connect the dots, we're all still here. We're just on our computers.
Yeah. Or in our bedrooms. Absolutely. Yeah, so just a field check, and we could definitely get more, into that around the questions, and we have a kind of a breakout moment. So nice to meet you guys. This is our team pick. So we're 2 of 3 of the co-founders. There is Seb, who's this lanky, tall, white dude from French and Mexican descent. In this current picture, he's wearing a cardigan with a blue cardigan with a kind of button-up shirt. And he's wonderful. I wish he could be here, but we're 3. And we'll get more into our founding first. But the more immediate things we want to address is, what's going on today and in 2021. So here.
Yeah, we really want to stress this whole pandemic hasn't, as much as people say we were all in this together, it has been a million times harder, especially for Black, Indigenous, and people of color and creative folks of all kinds who are not only just underrepresented, but historically excluded. We've seen a lot of things fall back on existing networks. And if people hadn't had a chance before the pandemic to get out and meet people and get into opportunities, we know it's been extra hard to try to make those connections now. We're really specifically interested in helping those of you who have never or rarely applied to opportunities before and haven't been able to sort of find a way into all of this. If you have, that's great. Congrats. It's not easy. But we're really focusing on sort of widening this and opening it up to people who haven't felt like it's been for them, very justifiably. But yeah, this is for you. You've got this. We're here to really kind of walk you through it, even if this is all totally new to you, or if it hasn't worked out in the past. And we're also really interested in talking about all the other ways to get the support you deserve. And this includes reparations and back pay for previous exploitative practices in the arts. And really kind of going into, even though it was, for some, seems like a long time ago, protests are ongoing. There is really a sustained need to build up pressure on these institutions. A lot of them are, appointing 1 or 2 folks, which is great, but it is not at all the same as deeply revising how organizations work. We would love for you all if you followed organizations that pledged to make donations during the Black Lives Matter movement, to follow up and see if they actually did that. I think a lot of people got away with getting a headline or 2 saying they were going to do it, but we know that a lot of these things don't actually happen without pressure. and just keep an eye on what people are doing. When we talk about reparations, there's a million things that word can mean to many people. And there's, of course, a need for this to happen on a really systemic national, international level, especially around land and resources that were taken. But we're also talking really specifically about anytime that, you know, if you were invited to be a, you know, if you were tokenized to be in something, to if you were mistreated by an organization, to really seek specific compensation and to really kind of follow up, if not that it is easy and not that it is in any way given. But I think at this current time, there's a lot more ground to stand on to really be like, this was a problem. And there's a lot of great people that will back you up in this. And we were happy to talk to you. And there's a lot of organizations that have been, not just in the US, but have been recognizing the harm they've caused and backing it up with some real actions. And that is something that we find both exhausting and encouraging, and is really, really, again, that never happens without pressure, unfortunately. And the last thing we want to talk about is fielding ridiculous requests, which many of you hopefully did not get caught into, but if you did have an organization reach out to you, either during last summer, or a lot of artists of Asian heritage were reached out to by organizations who very quickly realized that their, you know, roster of artists, their programming didn't stack up to the whole population, and asked people last minute to do a rough job or to just come in and give a talk or do a presentation. Please push back. Do not do anything for free. Do not let people you know, art wash, cause wash, make it seem like they did something to sort of absolve their reputation. And if you do get invited to do those kinds of things, of course, participate as your own interest or risk, but do please make sure to be getting compensated and really parlay it into lasting, like what you really want out of it. And whether that's, you know, something more substantial, saying sort of yes for now, but you need to do more of this, or even just, you know, saying no. I hope that people will learn, but we know that these requests have been egregious and ongoing, and there have been more than we can count. And that's just the people we know and people who share things with us. And so, yeah, don't be afraid to push back. And if you want to run anything by us or by some friends, please do so. No one should be getting away with this in 2021.
So the pandemic, as much as, again, we want to believe that it like is gone, it's still here. I think if you're centralized into cities that were really hit with the epidemic, there are ways that people are dealing with it. But if you're outside of that, there are people who just are, it was so politicized, you know, it was really kind of like taken advantage of. And of course, as you know, it's still very rampant. So what does this mean in terms of artist residencies and traveling? It just means you have to be really cognizant of what's kind of going on, where you're going, and what is actually going on with the local state of that residency or opportunity. There are other variants. So the more recent one is called a Mu variant. The Delta variant has been found that it's a 1 in 5,000, you know, person transmission. So it transmits less. However, it is affecting different demographics. And so, you know, this news is always being updated. I'm sure you're updated, so I don't need to be a news plotter over here. But, you know, it does affect residencies right now, which is like, for us at Rivet, it's really important for cultural exchange across borders and between different people. And unfortunately, this can't happen in person, but it can happen, you know, digitally or virtually and stuff like that. So this also goes into like traveling abroad. Like, this is a recent CDC report of what the current state of COVID is, and everything in red is pretty high in COVID. So as you can see, as much as we, at least I can speak for myself, as much as I live in this bubble in New York, and it feels like there's some kind of freedom with being able to walk around without masks, and I see my friends personally traveling to different locations, it is still pretty at risk. And with that comes with the idea of conscientious tourism. Like Hawaii is the best example. You know, there's a lot of people going to Hawaii right now, and the locals really don't want you there. And that goes up for other places. Like we're at a bidding war for the vaccine. And so America had high access to vaccines, so much so they were throwing out the vaccines. However, not every country had that access, and they're still fighting daily for ventilators, for equipment. You know, there are stories of ventilators being stolen, rerouted to America, you know, from places like Barbados and other locations. Thailand was one of them. And so there is some really dirty politics going on along with equipment, as well as the vaccine bidding and making the vaccine proprietary as well, which has since been released. So just be aware of where you're going and what community you're going to. And of course, I always recommend staying local. I think within like your state or within your region is best at the moment still. So, you know, there's always something around you. I promise you, within 100 miles, there's going to be something around you. And if not, I'm sure there's 100 creatives around you in your location. Art is really everywhere. And the broad span of artists getting together is incredible. So you can make things happen, or things are there waiting for you to happen as well. So I highly recommend this. I also recommend it from an ecological standing and kind of like environmentally conscious perspective, because, you know, do we really need to be flying, you know, so often, or traveling as much as we do, especially as we're seeing, you know, heavy rains and floods on one side of the United States to extreme fires on the other side of the United States simultaneously happening. So it's just kind of thinking about like, well, you know, what can you do within your own self, and what do you want to see perpetuated, and how do you want to live? And then that goes into the idea of residencies and how you kind of commune with those actions. So thanks for listening to our PSA.
Yes, we're not all doom and gloom. That this is just sort of laying the groundwork of what's different this time around. But yeah, things still find a way in some ways.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there is a way through, but I also stress just in the individual and your own choices that you're making. So, you know, take it or leave it. It's up to you. I'm not here to preach to the choir or like set any rules. I'm not your mom. So now we could get into, well, what is Rivet? We're sitting here, oh, Rivet this, Rivet that. What is it? So about in 2016, I co-founded and started to collaborate with Kira and Seb on this platform, and we developed it under New Ink's Tech Incubator, which is hosted by the New Museum. And in short, it's a search platform which really helps you find funded opportunities quite quickly. And there's some really awesome features on it, like you can follow these organizations and get alerted by email when they post new open calls. You could also follow the open calls themselves and get emailed as soon as the deadline gets closer and closer to the date. And then there's kind of this more integrated filtration system. So as you can see right here, rivet.es is the link to the actual website. And it's only a web app and mobile app, so you could access it via your phone or via your desktop as well. And it links directly to the application for that open call as well. So it's quite easy and quick access. And it's all free, because it's, as it should be, these services should be free to artists and creatives. So here is a sample of it. This is the 2021 update that is kind of currently being developed. It is not the current site, but I am working personally on it as my own project, TBD on launching and stuff like that. But I wanted to show you kind of a sample of the mobile with funding right up, up in front. You can currently, again, follow these things. And there is always like a timer on the opportunity as well. It's like how many days you have left to apply to the opportunity. So here is the screenshot of the desktop as it currently exists. And as you can see here, funding, we really kind of focused on that when we're building out our features, and it's first and foremost both in the sort mechanisms as well as the filter mechanisms. And when you go to our homepage, usually our featured residency section, the co-founders kind of curate that section, and we put like the most funded residencies and resources, and also organizations that we've personally vetted ourselves kind of end up in this featured section. So there's a more trustworthy with that. But every organization, there are over 1,000 organizations that are on board worldwide. And we actually personally go through and check them and check their websites to make sure that they're verifiable.
And yeah, when this started really quickly, it was a bunch of us who came together being like, there's a lot of platforms out there that are trying to share this information, but none of it is searchable. And a lot of the platforms, Katrina was coming from this great angle of having artists give feedback on the ones that were worth it and the ones that weren't. The work that we do at China Residencies is very specific geographically. And then Seb used to be a part of Residency Unlimited, which is a great actual residency that also Seb hacked together this really phenomenal WordPress situation that was sort of letting everyone post whatever they wanted. But then we really realized that we should just, join forces, make something a little more user-friendly. And the exciting part is, if you want to get to the next one, who's running the, these are a million
This is
other
what it
platforms.
looked like. This is what searching looked like in 2016. And I would have to say it still kind of looks like this in 2021 too. It's really hard to find opportunities.
The biggest change is now there's also a ton of Instagram accounts, and some are really good. I don't know if any of you follow a lot of them. We can share a few of them also, but also it tends to be this great pattern where someone starts a project, they post all this stuff, they're doing it manually, they totally burn out, realize they're not getting paid for it, try to start a Patreon, it doesn't work out, and then it kind of fizzles out. But all of these platforms were started for different reasons. Res Artistes and Trans Artists and the Alliance of Artists Communities are networks that support the residencies themselves. They charge residencies membership to be a part of it. So the only residencies you'll see listed there are ones that pay into this organization. Then you have things, Creative Capital, they are their own funding organization, and then they put out a newsletter. They just sort of cherry pick a few things that they care about and think would be helpful to the people they've already funded. Some of these platforms are unfortunately defunct already. AirJ was just for Japan, but they don't run that anymore. Anyway, there's lots of options out there. Many of these don't exist anymore. And many of them don't let you actually search by what we found out most artists care about, which is who is giving us any money? Can I bring my kids? What's it like there? And so I think that's the next one. We did a
and the accessibility and things like that, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, family being one of them for sure.
We did a gigantic survey that many
had like Artsy pick it up, and over 1,200 creatives gave feedback, and 100 organizations gave feedback on the survey as well. So before we even built the platform, we're asking our users, what do you want? What features do you want? What's the problem going on right now? And we also want to continue to pose this question to everybody here who's at the at this current workshop, like, well, what do you want and how can we help you? Because we really want to make this better and easier and affordable for you.
And it'll only work if people actually use it. And the fascinating thing when we started this is we were like, maybe this is all complicated and broken because there's too many people applying and these organizations don't actually really want this. But over 102 organizations that run open calls answered our survey. And as you can see, the one number that still blows my mind to this day, 46.1% of places that run open calls do not get enough applications. I'm going to say that one again, except for this tiny sliver of red that's like, less than 5%.
It's like one of the residencies in Germany who makes people mail in their applications because they get too many.
There's maybe a handful of places worldwide that are so famous and so well done that they are overwhelmed to get too many people. Almost everyone says either they're getting just the right amount or they are not getting enough. And so don't let that hold you back from applying to things. And the second pie chart, more than half of people have not done any work into really making sure they're reaching a diverse set of applicants, based on many, many factors. And it's not necessarily just their fault. A lot of them are understaffed and overworked and under-resourced, but also they kind of just put out these open calls. And the workshop where we met Ekron that we were teaching was really focusing on people who run these open calls to think about, maybe there's something you could do and how you write your open calls, and
where you're posting it to, like, some websites aren't accessible in different countries, or they don't translate, or there's a lot of kind of barriers that are set out there. Do you need an application fee? Like, is that a financial barrier? Yeah,
and 100 more of these kinds of things were things that we were hearing all the time, of people being like, people were only finding out of things through word of mouth, which means that these organizations would only ever get people applying who already knew people who were there, which of course is a recipe for disaster if you're trying to expand who you're working with. And so all of these things put together made us realize that while we hope organizations will make their process suck less, there are some things that we could do to distill and try to work on both sides of helping you all get the information you need to get these things, while also pressuring the organizations to make their process easier.
Yeah, so we part of that process, we've made this guide, and we're going to kind of show you the 10 steps on how to apply to these organizations and applications and grants. And it's really kind of can come across the board, and kind of can be applied to anything, even jobs. I go back and think about this when applying for jobs. So step 0, have a good project or creative practice, which guess what? You already do. Yay. Here's a quote from one of our previous kind of co-hosts for this Applying to Things workshop, Chloe Bass, who's a well-known artist, and she's doing some amazing work. I would follow her on Instagram too. But she said, I even had to figure out that applying for things was possible. I don't come from that world. And so it's just like, there is a huge information barrier. So even if you went to school, this is not given to you. If you didn't go to school, this is not given to you. It's a matter of, like Kira said, it's word of mouth. So it's within this kind of contiguous network, and within that, it is a huge accessibility issue, and who gets what opportunities, and so I think that our goal is to make opportunities accessible to everyone, and make it easier to find these and to get funded and to figure out which one's right for you.
So the next big step is finding the things you want to apply to. And again, if you, like Chloe, feel like you're not from that world, you can hack your way into it pretty easily. We, all of us really thrive off the internet, but also instead of just really being on the lookout and feeling like you need to be searching this platform, let things come to you. Sign up for these newsletters, follow the Instagram accounts, you can even follow specific hashtags, get on these newsletters, and even just sort of put the word out to tell your friends, hey, I would love to do say your manifestations out loud. I would love to go on a residency this year. I would love to have an exhibition sometime. I would love to teach some workshops, or I would love to, just let people know what you're interested in. And then maybe if they see something pop across their feed, they'll think of tagging you, or they'll just forward it to you. And kind of letting people know that you're open to these kinds of things is a really good way to start, and have your friends kind of filter and curate for you. And then one of our other favorite tips that is what we call reverse engineering people's CVs. And if there's a creative person or an artist you really admire, look them up and look at who gave them their very first opportunity. Because maybe now they have a show at the Guggenheim and they got a prestigious McDowell, award, whatever. That's not where they started. Look at, maybe their first show was at an artist-run space. Maybe it was a collective. And again, this works in all disciplines. Like for filmmakers, maybe their first shows at like a really underground film festival that you'd never heard of. And then later they were at some big fancy one. So really kind of look at who gave people their first shot. And it's kind of a humbling experience to see just kind of on the timeline how many years between people's first thing to their big thing. And it'll also just, give you a sense of, who's out there supporting the people you like.
Yeah. And along those lines, like it's the idea that like, don't compare your year 0 or 1 to somebody's like year 30, and so like make sure that you are just like comparing your own success to your success and your vision of success, and like really don't stress about other people because they're on a different journey, they're on a different path, and they've done other things, to get where they are. Doesn't mean you can't look at those things and cherry pick them for yourselves, but also just be mindful to not stress yourself out as well. So does it make sense for you? The first question is like, are you eligible? A lot of these open calls will we'll write who's eligible, for Squeaky Wheel. When they just presented, they said you have to have a social security number, and that doesn't mean you have to necessarily be a US citizen or anything like that, but that is a requirement in order for them to fill out a W-2. So that is an eligibility qualification. The other questions you might ask, okay, it might be so exciting. Whoa, I got this opportunity. But however, can you make it work? Do you have the time? Do you have the money? And money can also be like the rent that you're paying while you're away, the travel costs, the living costs while you're at this opportunity, the materials costs to make something there, the materials costs to ship it back. Hopefully all residencies one day will just provide all that to you, but it's a hard and long road, so even little fees or stipends go a really long way because it does cost a lot of money to actually start to think about attending these things. So going local kind of helps with those costs as well. So program requirements. So some places require you to not be a student, to be 21 years and older. Some places just want students. So you really have to just read the open call. The administrators on the residency side of things really put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into probably every single word in these open calls. And so they really stress on who can kind of fit or not at this time for what they're looking for. And there are a ton of different programs out there. So there is something for you. It's just depending on that program with that particular organization, and then is it worth it? Does it suit your lifestyle? Is the organization something that you also want to support as they're supporting you? It kind of goes back to ideas of like, politically, are you aligned? Have they in the past done something that like maybe doesn't kind of fit with what you're looking to do, or do they fully align? And that's something you totally want to support. And so just kind of being mindful about that when you're taking on opportunities. And also, will it give you what you need? That's a very important question. Like, and really ask that of the people, because, I started this whole entire journey in this world because I was an artist. I got into a residency in Berlin, and they had this mission statement that was grand and bloated, and it promised the world of like being connected to the Berlin art world. And I got there and the residency was broken. And one point in the night, I had to like sleep with a knife under my bed because someone was like breaking in and smashing doors down with a hammer. And so like they did not deliver, needless to say, and I was paying for this residency. And so it's like, really understand what is their program, what are they giving you, and is this what you really need right now in your career, or do you just kind of need to get into the studio and focus on your work, or your kitchen or whatever it is that you work in? What's important to you right now, and then how competitive is it? It can be a more prestigious program. They might get more applications, so don't just take that to heart if you don't get it. But however, as we saw the statistics before, over half the residencies don't really get enough applicants. So, don't really kind of take that question to heart, I would say.
And unfortunately, we wish people were more transparent about how many applications they actually get. We love that Squeaky does it. it's hard for people to get a sense of which ones are what. But yeah, no, really just last time about the other thing too, about like when we say like, does it suit your lifestyle? Think really about also like, is it going to be with a lot of people? Is it going to be in a really rural area? It's going to be really isolated. Are you looking for quiet time, or are you looking for social time? Are you looking for access to certain equipment? Like really kind of try to vision yourself there. We know a lot of people starting out want to just kind of apply to everything because everything sounds good, but like you might not like it. And I think that's something that's hard to talk about. No one wants to look a gift horse in the mouth. No one wants to, say that the experience they wanted wasn't ideal. But once you kind of talk to people who've done a few of these things, they'll tell you, this place was great. The people were lovely, but it was a like really complicated environment, or like this project that I wanted to do was ideal at this residency, but I hated the other people who were there. And, it's hard to make decisions in advance about that kind of thing, but just try to think through it and talk to people who are there and, look at the pictures, look at it on Google Maps, try to find out as much as you can. And then, this one's maybe the most obvious one, but maybe not. Don't miss the deadline. Set alerts, like Katrina said earlier, you can do that on Rivet. You save the thing and it'll remind you have this many days left. You can also set your own calendar reminders, set alarms. If you know you're definitely not going to make the deadline, it's totally okay to ask for an advance and an extension in advance. And so you just message, be like, hey, Ekram, I don't know you, but I would love to apply to this thing. I came to the info session and it would be great, but XYZ reasons, or you don't even have to give a reason. Can I send this in a little bit late? And your lovely, friendly administrators will either say, hell no, we don't have time for that. We can't, sorry. Or they'll say, of course, no problem. Send it in by this date and we'll be happy to look at it. If you notice that you have missed the deadline, you can also try that. Chances of success are a little bit lower, but you can always try. People sometimes say like, hey, we saw the deadline closed. Can I send you something this weekend anyway? And sometimes with China Residency, sometimes we actually did buffer in some extra time for an extension and we can do that. Other times we can't. But maybe don't try to find out and just apply one time.
Okay, so preparing your proposal. Make sure you read every single question and try not to rush it. Again, this kind of goes into the idea that Kira was touching upon around like spam applying to places. Like you want to be very intentional, and that really shows through when you're on the other side. Like I've been a juror before, or read applications. You can understand when people really want to apply to your residency and when it feels kind of like a cut and paste response. So read every single question. Go into being concise, brief, clear, sharp, and interesting. I stress brief, so like because people are sometimes like, when I was doing an open call for the Contemporary Arts Center in New Orleans, we had about 400 applications. So, if you could get your very complex ideas over, a very short paragraph that really helps your juror, it's conscientious of their time and also the admins and everybody else involved on the other side of things. So, but don't cut yourself short too. Like if you have to say what you have to say, do that. Do draft, and once you do, like you could get a group of creatives together and do kind of like a pen pal or one other person that you're switching applications back and forth through, so they know, oh hey, I have an application, do you mind checking it? And so you could get feedback on it. Revise, review, and repeat. So this in particular, one thing that is a miss most of the time is like this artist brand statement with this art language, and then it totally doesn't match your portfolio submission. So it's really important to get other eyes on it to make sure that whatever is being stated in your proposal is also kind of coinciding with whatever you're presenting visually. Yeah.
And this same thing, like as you're applying for things, some juries and the way we work is we will only read the proposal, we'll read anonymously because we don't want people fixating on you know, who you are, what your name is, what your CV looks like, where you went to school or where you didn't go to school, and whether you have a ton of followers or not. Not all organizations do this. Other people immediately, the first thing they'll do will click on your website before they look at your work samples, before they look at your what you send in. We have a feeling that sometimes a lot of organizations will favor people who have a ton of Instagram followers or are very web savvy. And in general, like, know that people are going to look at these things. And so it's good for when you're doing a big round of applying things to make sure that everything kind of lines up. You know,
make sure it's updated. I can just chime in quickly. When we were doing the CAC open call, which was a survey of Gulf South-based artists, we definitely liked kind of what was going on, but we didn't necessarily like the work fitting for the exhibition. So we would go to people's websites, their social media platforms, in order to see, like, okay, something's, you know, magical within this application, but that work doesn't fit. Do they have something else that we might be able to curate? Do they have other examples that we might be able to pull in for this exhibition and really try to make this work for this artist? So
yeah, 100%. And I've seen that happen many times when, you know, artists apply for something and it turns out, you know, on their website, they also DJ and they also do all those other things. Like, it helps people, you know, a lot of people will keep you in mind for something else. And so, yeah, make sure your work is up to date, shows what you do, is sort of in line with what you're talking about. And that's all pretty straightforward, I think. Oh, and another note is, if you don't have a website, maybe just put together like a PDF or like something to go to, like, or even use your social media as your website. Just try to have a link to something that can be really helpful. And then, yeah, this is part of the swap and buddy system. If you have someone who can help you with this, it's really a lot easier to do it for someone else than it is to look at your own writing. But yeah, check for typos, check that it makes sense. Clear, concise, sharp, and interesting is kind of the words to keep in mind. It's especially helpful to give it to someone who doesn't know what you do or hasn't been following all of your work. And they may be like, this sounds cool, I don't get it. And, you know, hopefully the feedback will be delivered nicely, but really take it to heart, because the people who are reading your proposals don't necessarily know you. And, you know, like Katrina said, once you're slogging through 300, 400 things back to back, they also start to blur. And so I know it sounds kind of weird to just be like, really be interesting. Just try to distill the thing that you're doing that other people aren't doing and talk about it in the simplest way. With the slight caveat that if you're applying to a place that loves, you know, esoteric philosophy and theory, maybe they are looking for people who also write that way. But most of the time, people really might get lost in the details if you don't go right to the point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, get feedback, revise, and also be lazy. Like, you can totally reuse your applications for everything. It doesn't have to be a daunting process where you start from scratch. And also, you know, organizations do this too. We have boilerplate copy we use when we apply for funding. There's so many things to apply for that it's just really helpful to keep that all organized. And it can be, you know, on your computer, in a cloud folder, but just, you know, save a draft of it, or even just saving a draft in your emails. Being able to check back on the last thing you applied for and start from there will save you an enormous amount of time.
And I just want to tag on to the interesting part to kind of like distill that a little bit more, but the idea of storytelling and maybe more of a narrative around your work and what's going on. Even as simple as saying like the medium and what is actually being made out of. A lot of artists tend to miss this, in particular in the visual arts field. I could talk about, and you're just like, okay, but what am I looking at? And starting from there and then getting into the story might be a great jumping off point if anybody has like writer's block or anything like that. So this is kind of some things that we could do either right now, but I think at this moment it's just opening up to questions and answers about Squeaky Wheel and their amazing program. We love them and what they're doing for their community up in Buffalo, or anything about Rivet that we could do. These are some things that you could also bring back home to kind of set up this program for yourself. So, you know, like with a group of people, you could look for things, you can share and swap. It's kind of like a boilerplate of what we're doing right here that you could kind of take home and do yourself as well.
And yeah, this can totally be, you know, a club you start for the people who do similar kind of work. Like if you're a group of dancers and choreographers, a group of, you know, even like chefs, I don't know, you could do this really in any format. Whatever you're applying for, it's a good way to start something communal.
We found that like still the most common way of artists applying to things is actually through groups of friends. Like, and so what was that a huge Google Doc that was being created of a spreadsheet of, it was like 2 years ago or something like that. And we're just like, there's a website for that. But yes, artists still have this impulse to do things and share in this kind of way. So, you know, we still fully encourage it. However, you're trying to get opportunities, go for it. Absolutely, you know.
And that one, I think I can pull it up. But the artist Everest Pittman, they really wanted, they're very specifically in art, tech, and games, and wanted to make a very niche list for those things of places that they had been to or other people had been to, and I think they also teach. And so also within these wide things like, you know, curate your own playlist of places maybe, and like it's great to share out. If you got to go on a great opportunity, tell people that place was great. If it was mediocre, maybe don't shout it out to the world, but definitely let people know. And since there's not that many of you here, I don't know if you all want to do this maybe after the recording is paused, but we're happy to also just like hear you out about what you're specifically doing, what you're looking for, and maybe we can give you some very concrete, specific tips for the kind of work you're looking to get supported.
Absolutely.